Hello, hello. I am so excited to welcome another amazing guest today, Jenna Hermans. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here, Julie.
Ugh, this conversation, it's so needed, and I know for myself and for pretty much everybody listening, this is going to be so helpful, especially in this time of hustle and bustle. Let's do more, let's achieve more, let's fill our plates up with all the things. So I'm so excited, Jenna, to have you on. Jenna is living proof that you can create a life of calm within chaos and overwhelm. She uses her bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in organizational management, and over 15 years of human resources experience to build strong teams both at work and at home. Jenna is the co founder of Be Courageous, a busy mom of four, coach, and author. As seen in Forbes, The Sun, Elle, Yahoo, and more, Jenna takes an intentional and inclusive approach to help people, especially parents, implement tools that put organization and systems around their busy lives that infuse calm and more joy, helping them go from chaos to calm, which doubles as the title of her debut book that launched in May of 2023. Congratulations!
Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, so much gold that we can dig into. So first of all, I just love the title as well. It's this chaos to calm. What led you into this space?
So there were kind of a variety of things that happened that all meld together, right? Like a nice chaotic storm, so to speak, that led to me needing to find my calm. And so that was becoming a mom of four. Well, I became a mom of three essentially overnight. I married a man with three children and became full-time mom to them quickly after meeting them. Moved to a new city, town where we had no built-in infrastructure, community, added a fourth child to our family and started a business, my husband and me together, Be Courageous, as you mentioned. And shortly after all of that shift and change, I found myself in a deep state of overwhelm and feeling really unsettled. And in that, I realized, right, I am barely surviving this life. This is not okay. And it doesn't actually have to be this way. And made the intentional choice to shift from that chaos and overwhelm to a place where I felt, again, grounded and on 2 feet and feeling like me again.
Oh my goodness. So going from no kids to three kids like that, adding and then a fourth child, starting a business, like I feel overwhelmed just as you describe it. And I think so many people listening, whether you are can relate to, maybe you have multiple children, maybe you don't have children, you have multiple businesses, your career, like this idea of just feeling deeply overwhelmed and in over your head. So what, and tell us more about Be Courageous. And so did that come when you already realized you were overwhelmed? Had you already started that?
So my husband and I started Be Courageous before we were married, before the fourth child, but we didn't really do anything with it. It was a way for us to be able to work with small businesses that didn't fall under, the umbrella of being able to afford the consulting fees from where my husband had been working, and that also I could bring my newfound skills in that space of facilitation and innovation to be able to practice under this new umbrella. And so we had a few clients here and there when we started it, but we really didn't do anything with it until multiple years later when we decided in 2016 or 2017, we already have this business, on paper and the taxes and the bank accounts and all of that. Let's actually really do this. We're in this new space where we really know that we can really put all of our energy and effort into it because, my husband had gone from being an external consultant to an internal consultant back to external consultant again. I had gone in through various paths with my HR and operations background and then going into design thinking and facilitation in the corporate setting, as well as in small business and SME. And so after our fourth child was born, we both decided, let's quit our corporate jobs and just do this together. We have all the skills that we need and we complement each other so well. So let's do this.
Oh my goodness. And so all of those, like all of these things like hitting and like building over time, what was, if you can think of like what was the catalyst or the moment where you're like, okay, I can no longer keep running at this pace with this amount of overwhelm. That was the catalyst to you really realizing like, okay, I can do this a different way.
There was a moment after having kind of debilitating panic attacks on a regular basis after the last panic attack, which I didn't know was the last one at the time, but coming out of that, and I remember the exact moment of when it was. My husband was out of town on a client engagement. The big kids, the big three, were all coming home soon from elementary school. The baby sleeping next to me, and I was connected to the pump machine. Whoosh, 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 right? All of that. And it, just another wave of it's all up to me, right? I have to do everything. And I have my laptop in front of me while I'm pumping, trying to, continue building the infrastructure of this new business. I'm needing to now think about, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? The kids are going to come home needing snacks, attention, homework help, and more. There's a huge mound of laundry that I'm looking at right in front of me as well, and a kitchen that just don't even want to go in there, but now I have to go in there and cook on top of all the mess that's been left there for who knows days at this point. And so coming out of the panic attack of all of that, thinking, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't have to do this anymore. And I had this this memory almost of I have all the tools that I need already, but I've just forgotten, like they're dormant inside of me. I just need to awaken them and remember them, right? From my bachelor's degree in psychology, my organizational management master's degree, my 15 plus years of HR experience. I even ran a preschool for almost 5 years. So I have all the skills, and I'm also a smart person, right? I'm a resourceful human. So whatever I don't have, I can figure out. So let me intentionally now, moving forward, not do it like this anymore. I'm going to make a change.
Oh, and that hits all of those things where you think, especially as, just this, we get so overwhelmed, the overstimulation. And I think sometimes as adults, and especially, parents, so if you're a parent listening to this, it's just heightened when you've got, your physical space is cluttered with things and toys and clothes and laundry. And then you've got the overstimulation of just the noise with the kids, and you forget sometimes like you're a human too. And so you can get, I don't know if you relate to this, but myself as a parent as well, where all of a sudden it's just like, it sounds like everything is amplified and everything just sounds so much louder, the kids banging or talking or whatever it is. And then you can find yourself snapping or just really getting frustrated and then feeling guilt and remembering like, okay, wait, I'm a human too. I'm a person too. And one of the things you said around just like all of the things around, one of the things that I would say for a while was like, oh, I'm so sick of running around like a hot mess express. Like that is the like phrase I would use, is like, oh, and I would intentionally say to myself, slow down. So I'm so curious, when you talk about some of these tools that you already knew about, but you were going to start implementing, what are some of those things?
Some of them were very tangible and others were more mindset and self-care, right? Some were like efficiency in the home. How do I make sure that I get all the things done that I need to without losing my mind, right? So, and one of the first things there was the concept of meal planning, right? I found that every day, come 4:30, every day I have this stress that hits me like a truck. Every single day, I need to think about what to make for dinner.
What's for dinner?
What's for dinner? And then I have to be a creative problem solver, right? Go look around. What do we have? What's going bad soon? What do we need to use? And create something from scratch, right? And that was just so frustrating every single day. And so one of the first things I did was implement a meal plan and say, all right, it's Sunday evening. We're going to talk about the meals we're going to have for the week now. And then look in the fridge, look in the pantry. What do we already have? Use what we have, and then also, and create a grocery shopping list, and then shop against, the meals that we want to have for that week. And then come 4:30 every day, I'm not, hit again with that truck of stress and thinking, I already know what I need to make and I have everything that I need for it. And that was just one little thing that took so little energy, right? In the getting ahead of, right? The Sunday evening, asking everyone, what do you want to have for meals this week? And spending however much time creating that list, the grocery list, and then the grocery shopping took so much less time and effort and zero stress compared to the everyday amount of time that it took to create a meal, to think about a meal, the stress that I put my body under because don't know what everyone wants to eat and what do I want to eat, and I'm already exhausted from the whole day. So that being just one thing that made such a profound difference.
Mm-hmm. So I love that too. We've talked about this so many times in our house, like, oh, the what's for dinner. Like, we know it's going to come up every single day. And we've talked about the meal planning. I wrote it down for myself. And those of you who are listening, who are like me, who keep saying, I'm going to do this, just the sense, like the sigh of relief that I even just get from you and picking up from you is enough fuel for me to be like, okay, Julie, it's time. It's time to do this. Okay, so the meal plan, and it sounds like for you, it's like putting processes in place in your life, or like tools and systems in place in your life. So what were some of the other things that you did that you felt like have really helped you, and that when you're working with people helps them to go from this chaotic life to more of this calm flow?
There's different buckets of areas of how I approach helping others and how I realized I helped myself through my own process, right? And the buckets are the 5 concepts of calm. And the first one being efficiency, right? And so that's getting done the things we have to with as little to no energy as possible, navigating our natural energy cycles, as well as being self-aware of the day and managing our time and, being a bit of a ninja with our time management. But what does that include? That we talk about boundaries and buffering between things and creating space for how are you going to take care of the things that you have to, right? The second being habits, the habits that we have in place that support our calm, that support us being the best versions of ourselves, and also recognizing what are the habits that we have that don't serve us as well, right? Because we all have the bad habits that we do, right? Whether that's doom scrolling on our phone before going to bed or in the middle of the day, or going to a food or treat that we know that we maybe shouldn't have that doesn't make us feel good. There's all kinds of habits under the sun that don't serve us. And so recognizing what those are and putting in intentionally choosing habits and creating infrastructure around them to support them, the ones that do help and benefit our everyday. And then the third, and I'll go a little tighter with each of these concepts as there are 3 more, communication. How do we communicate with others to get the support that we need, to build rapport, to build trust, right? So that we can have better relationships with those around us, right? And that may even be communicating where you need space, right? And also that involves listening, being an active listener and hearing others as well. That falls under the bucket of communication. And then the fourth is community. Who we have in our world, and when we interact with those people, right? There's some that we don't have a choice around. Our children, they live with us, the end. There's right? Navigating those relationships. But when I talk about community and the people we have in our world, I'm talking about people who don't live under the same roof as us, right? And those people in our world that, again, add to our calm, add to our groundedness, add to the goals that we're trying to achieve, right? Whether that be in the workplace or in our private lives. But a lot of times, it could be colleagues in the workplace, people who are, in a similar level of you, but in a different department, right? And it could be that it's people, your neighbors, right? It could be the person who lives next door. It could be the person who owns the coffee shop, a barista, whatever. So the people in your world, friends as well, that help support what you're trying to achieve. And again, creating distance if needed from those who aren't adding and are detracting from your calm, or energy leechers, or more toxic in your world. And then the last one, the last pillar, concept of calm, is self-care, taking care of you, right? And really thinking about the systemic care, right? And I'm not talking surface level self-care, manicures and massages, and those are all great. I'm not saying don't do them, but that is not sustainable internal systemic self-care, which are things on how you start your day, what you do throughout your day. And I mean, these are micro moment things in addition to larger things that you can do to take care of you, to manage your energy and, fill your life force.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love these. So these five, what do you say? They're concepts of calm, the five.
Yeah, the pillars of calm.
The pillars of calm. I love that. So we've got efficiency, habits, communication, community, and self-care. So pause, re-listen to those, jot those down. As you were talking, Jenna, a question came up, and I would love your perspective because, having worked in corporate and now in my role now where I'm supporting, leaders and business owners either through coaching or training, and you also have experience working in this space and you're doing consulting with people. A question and a struggle that I hear all the time from people is the time management. And, if people are sitting there going like, okay, well, this must be nice. That must be nice to do that, to have time to implement that. But that doesn't work for me because fill in the blank with reasons, right? Oh, I'm back to back in meetings because I don't have control of my schedule, because I don't have time to go to the bathroom during the day because I'm booked so back to back. What are some thoughts, if you've heard this before, and some thoughts and considerations for somebody who feels as though they just don't have time to make the time to implement some of these things?
Yeah. And firstly, I'd say, I hear you. I hear you and I understand and I sympathize. I empathize. I used to be that person, right? And I still have days. Where it's back to back and it's a lot, but it's not all the time now. It's not consistently that way. That's not the norm, right? And what I would tell somebody who's in the thick of that, right? And they're like, this is my everyday, is that one, it can be different. And two, it starts with you. Right? It starts with communicating your needs, communicating how you are actually, before you communicate, it's one, self-awareness, recognizing this is not working for me and I don't want this to be my norm anymore, right? Having that moment, that aha of like, I am actually not wanting to do this. Okay, so what do I do now? How do we make the shift? What are the things that are in my control? What are the things that are not in my control? And so one of the things that is always in our control is being able to, how we start our day, right? How do you start your day so that you can set yourself up for the best day ahead, right? And so everyone starts their days differently, but there's got to be already like some memory of a day that just went great, right? What did you do earlier in that morning that set you up for that day? Go back in the memory bank, right? And access that day and think, oh, I woke up, I don't know, early and maybe did a little bit of exercise or did some quiet meditation. I read a book. I had coffee in peace, read the newspaper, if people still do that, on my phone, read the newspaper on my phone. It's recognizing what are the things that I can do that help anchor me into my best form so that I can show up as my best self, right? And then there are anchors throughout the day that you can do as well to support yourself that bring your energy up higher, right? And it could be that you have certain foods that you can, shovel a few cashews in your mouth, right? Or a couple of carrots, hummus, whatever, right? The things that you can maybe keep that are non-perishable in your desk or in your purse, you put a few of those in you just to have a little more energy, because so often with those back-to-backs where you don't have time to go to the bathroom in the middle of the day, you're also not eating and you're not giving yourself that nourishment that you need to literally energy, because food is energy, to put energy in your body so that you have something to give as an output, right? And then beyond that, right, you actually everyone has the availability to share what's going on for them in the workplace, right? To be able to share, I'm having a tough time with these back-to-backs. I need a 10-minute buffer. Or is there a way to space things out? Or before we get started here, I need this much time to get myself set up. Or at the end, right? There are ways to to communicate, whether it's with your boss, with your employees, with your peers, right, on how you want to structure a little more of your day. And yes, a lot of our time can be dictated by others in the workplace, but to find where you do have some power, right? What is in your control? And to also, I give you now permission to be a role model, right? To show others that this is a possibility to have these conversations. Yes, they are courageous, especially in a workplace that maybe you don't have full psychological safety. These are courageous conversations to have, but play it out. What's the worst that would happen if you said, hey, I would really like to have shorter meetings, or to have you send an agenda ahead of time so I know what to expect during this meeting? Because maybe it doesn't need to be a meeting. Maybe we could have just a little back and forth via Slack and not have a meeting at all. Or do you mind if I eat during this meeting? Or I need a few minutes on this particular day where it's all these back-to-backs. I need a little buffer in between. I need a bio break, whatever it is. What's the worst that would happen if you were to share that this is how your days are and this is not sustainable for you, and that you would actually be a better boss? You would be a better colleague. You'd be a better employee if you had some more space in your day, and would love to trial that out.
Oh, so many like mic drop moments in there that I wanna highlight a couple key things. And if you didn't catch these, go back and re-listen to this, because the big things I heard you say, Jenna, was, and this is something that I tell my clients too, with like deep love and respect, and also a little bit of like tough love, of like, you do have a choice. When you feel like you don't have a choice is when you're giving your power to everybody and everything else, and you start to feel at the victim or the effect of everything happening to you. I don't have control of my schedule, other people do it. And this is a reminder of, you do actually have a choice. You have a choice in how you're seeing it, how you're responding. So it's like the choice, and then also having those boundaries and giving yourself permission. Like, okay, here, Jenna and Julie are giving you permission right now to have some boundaries and have those conversations. And so many people, and it sounds like you hear the same thing from people, is they're just giving all that power away to everybody else because they feel like they don't want to ruffle feathers. They feel like they can't. They feel like they're not in control. And yeah, there are so many things we can't control, and yet there are a lot of things in our schedule we can control. So like you shared, having some conversations with, colleagues, team members, business partners, whatever that might be like, to be like, hey, this schedule isn't working for me. I need to try this. And being intentional with blocking that time and having that time in between. And I know for me, when I worked in corporate, I would feel that too, where it's like back to back to back meetings. And I know I wasn't speaking up, but I would feel it throughout the day, like, oh, I'm just trying to shove food in. And then when I shifted into my own business, and I don't know if you experience this as well, I was like, oh, I'm going to have freedom of my schedule. But then you can find yourself reverting back to like those old tendencies, where all of a sudden I'd look at my calendar, and clients and, discovery calls and people had access to book whenever on my calendar. So I would find myself back to back all day again, until I kind of had to go like, oh, wait, I need to schedule in breaks. And I worked with my assistant on my team to be like, hey, no more than this many meetings a day. And so always revisiting that too, and knowing that it might need to change. So I love those tools and those ideas that you're sharing.
Yeah. And, I think another part is to share that this is also trial and error. You don't have to have the answers when you begin making these shifts, right? You can trial it out and say, I'm going to try this. I hope it works. If it doesn't, that is learning, and let's try something different, or let that thing go. Right. So it's not like anything is set in stone when you're starting to have these conversations, or when you're doing this just for yourself, right? That you can always make a shift. And if someone says, well, but last month you said you needed it to be this way. And it's like, well, I lived into that experience and realized that's not actually what I needed to support the bigger goals here. And what I needed was actually this. And so I'm going to try that instead. Right. And so And the thing is, as soon as you find the thing that works, most of the time, people are not going back and be like, well, you did all these other things before you figured that out. They're like, oh, you figured it out, and now this is the way that it is, and this is how we're going to do it moving forward for you until there's another shift, right? People are adaptable. People understand. And when we're transparent and open and vulnerable with sharing our experience, then others have a better and easier capacity to be understanding and compassionate and to really relate to you and give you that space that you're desiring, or to give you that flexibility that you're asking for, or those buffers in between things, right? Reminding people of your humanity. Because so often, especially as leaders, right, a lot of my executive clients, they don't feel like they can show their humanness to their direct reports and to their organizations, right? They're like, no, people, they think that they're on a pedestal and that people see them on this pedestal and they have to be perfect and showing up, A+ energy every single day. And I go, no, you are a human being. And by putting yourself in this position of always needing to be on the ball all the time, hyper productive, always on it, you're showing like you're a robot, and then that everyone feels like that's how they need to be in order to be successful as well. And that if they don't show up that way, that then they're not going to have your respect because you're the role model here. Right. So by role modeling your humanness and by sharing, I'm having an off day, guys, my kid is having, a health issue, my parents, my dad just died, whatever it is. Knock on wood. No, my dad's very healthy. Stay that way, please. By sharing your humanness and by showing and taking care of you, by saying, I'm going to have these boundaries in my schedule. I'm only going to take 4 one-on-ones and I'm going to have 30 minutes between my meetings. You're granting permission for everyone else that interacts with you and sees what you're doing. You're granting them permission to do the same, to take care of them and to treat themselves the way that you're treating yourself, which with respect. And here's the thing. Right? It's not like people are going to go and be like, oh, well, my boss is just totally cool with me doing my thing. And like, oh my gosh, I have a headache. And that means that I don't need to come to work today. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's probably going to be higher retention in the workplace when you treat every person, or you recognize the humanness in everyone. And again, granting permissions for people to have more human-like behaviors in the workplace versus robotic ones. And you're going to have more psychological safety, which leads to better creative problem solving, which comes up with greater ideas and brainstorming and, people being able to think more creatively. And that ultimately ends up with better products, happier customers, and higher retention in your organization.
Which is like gold mine words right now when we think about, what leaders are going through, what they're looking for. And if you're a leader of, in an organization, or if you're a leader of your business and in your company, and this has come up in so many conversations with my podcast guests, and I say this to people all the time, and I love that other people are sharing this message too. It's like, let's humanize leadership. I've been saying that, and so I love that you share that too. Like, we are humans. And I remember when I was looking to leaders, I can think of leaders who demonstrated that and the ones that didn't, and the expectations that were set on the team, and that you are the ripple effect into your business, into the people that you're leading, and they're going to follow that example. And so not only is it, set an example for you and your family and those in your community, but for those that you're working with. So many great things. And you started to talk about it. I want to dive in a little bit further into when people do this. So Jenna, when you started to implement these pillars of calm, when you're working with people to do this through your book and through all of the work that you do, what are some of the biggest differences that you have noticed in your life and that you notice in other people's lives when they start to implement these things?
One of the biggest things that I've noticed is the concept of being responsive versus reactive, right? Someone being able to take a beat when they're asked a question or confronted, with maybe some conflict or whatever it may be. And instead of having a knee-jerk reaction, because when your nervous system is flared, right, and you're in fight, flight, freeze, the thing that you're looking to do is just keep yourself safe, right? How can I maintain my safety right now? And usually that means going with an emotional response and something that is familiar, that feels safe, right? And in that, we're not being thoughtful and mindful about what's actually better for the long term versus how I can keep myself safe right now. And so when someone is practicing these tools, right, and and intentionally bringing to the forefront, regulating their nervous system, protecting their time, taking care of themselves, making sure they have the right people around them, et cetera, right? They are able to be truly responsive and make more thoughtful decisions, give really mindful, responses to people, places, things, right? And making your decisions around, it could be as simple as what we're going to make for dinner, right? To how are we going to do end of year reviews? It spans the board of how response versus reaction is beneficial on every level with every relationship in every context.
Mm-hmm. And that's a huge thing. Like you're just sharing, it's seeing that for yourself and seeing that in other people. When you are more controlled, when you're more regulated, when you're more in tune, you're able to be responsive in situations. Take that second, take a beat, take a breath versus reacting. And then you'll see that show up in all these different areas. I'm curious if somebody's listening right now and they're really, like we were talking about, they're really in it. Like they right now are not really implementing any of these things and they're just feeling that chaos. They're feeling that overwhelm. You can almost like physically see it in them, right? Where they're just like, oh, everything. If you had to pick like one thing, like maybe one of the biggest needle movers or just like one thing that they could focus on starting with, what would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be to start with the basics, what I call the brilliant basics. And this is under the umbrella of self-care, right? And so maybe this isn't just one thing. It's 5 technically, but it is one thing in that it is getting back to taking care of your basic human needs. Right. And there's a fun acronym for it to make it easier to remember. And it's called CHEER. Yay. CHEER. And the C stands for connection. It's a reminder that you are more than what's under this roof and these walls in the screen, right? Connecting to the things that make you feel like you again, and that you are a part of this huge ecosystem, right? Whether that's connecting to nature or to friends, people, right? It could be meditating. But the concept of connection, right? That is the first one. The second is hydration, right? We all need to hydrate to water ourselves.
My large Stanley over here.
There you go. Perfect. Right. I've got like mugs and glasses literally everywhere. Oh my gosh. So hydrating yourself, right? It's so incredibly important. And for anyone out here who has kids, right? We make sure our kids have water bottles everywhere that they go, right? Same for us. We should have water or access to everywhere we go as well, because we are humans and we are water-based. We are over 55% water, depending on your age, your gender, etc. The third letter, E, is for eating. We talked about this already, right? The importance of nutrition and nourishing yourself, right? Again, basic. I'm not saying anything that's like completely profound, right? And this is the most unsexy list on the planet of things to do, but we forget. We actually forget so often. And then we find ourselves in these states of overwhelm, chaos, right? Of depression, of isolation, of feeling anxious. And it's generally because we're not doing the basics. Mm-hmm. Okay. So nourishing ourselves. That was number 3, eating. Number 4, the second E, is exercise. And when I say exercise, it's an umbrella. I just couldn't put the letter M into my acronym. So I use exercise instead. But really it's about movement, right? It's about joyful movement, something that makes you feel happy, but it's moving your body. We are so sedentary in the current culture that we're in. So often we're sitting at a desk in front of a screen, right? And that is how we spend so much of our day. But as humans, that is not what we've evolved into. We've evolved into being creatures that move, right? To walk, to hula hoop. I have my gold hula hoop right behind me.
Well, awesome.
Yeah. And so movement, right? Whether that is, you go to the gym and move your body in that way, or you go for a walk or a hike, or you do yoga in your room or stretches, whatever it is. movement, so incredibly important. I know we know this again with our kids. If they don't get to move, right, they get cabin fever and they're bouncing off the walls. And it's like, go outside and run around, go and move. And then the fifth, the very last letter, is rest. And again, another its own little umbrella of sleep, getting as consistent sleep as one can, because we are cyclical creatures and we need that rest. And then also resting in between things. Resting during the day, that could look like just taking 2 minutes to not look at a screen and to read a book, or to look out the window, or to connect with a human, right? But resting your mind, resting your body, taking a break. And that could be active recovery as well, right? But it's the idea that it's not just go, go, go. Because again, we are not robots. We are humans. And so this very basic list of things, that's where I say is the best place to begin, with connection, watering yourself, nourishing yourself, getting some movement, and by resting. And these things are not big, overwhelming. Like, you don't need to go to the gym for an hour in order to get the benefit of this. And you don't need to go. What's the next one I was thinking? I'm sorry. Like, you don't have to even spend, hours in nature. Like 5 minutes is all you really need. Micro moments.
Things. Yeah, those micro moments. And I love that that's where you started, these brilliant basics, as you call them. Because so many people, like, what I tell people too, it's like, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's like these simple things. So stop trying to take on, I have to totally change everything in my life, or I have to try this new process, or I have to hire out help, like whatever you're thinking. Like, if you're feeling that chaos, if you're feeling overwhelmed, start with these basics. Are you having connections with people? Are you hydrated? Are you eating? Right? Because again, if you're running from thing to thing during the day, and then you get to the end of the day and you're snapping at your family or your kids, it's like, okay, well, maybe it's because you didn't drink anything all day long. So I love that, of coming back to those basics. Okay, Jenna, you have shared with us so many amazing things, and I want to follow up with 2 things before we wrap up. So the first one that I ask all of my guests, and you actually started to talk about it before, the name of the podcast is It Starts With You. What does, in a sentence or two, what does It Starts With You mean to you?
It means to me the concept of role modeling, right? Of ownership of yourself, of your choices, your life, and then the role modeling of granting permission to others to do the same, right? If I can't do it for me, then I can't invite others to do it too.
Oh, I love that. And especially because we talk so much about leadership on here, about self-leadership, and whether you're a leader of people directly or you influence people and decisions, people are looking to you. So It Starts With You means you take ownership of yourself, which in turn gives people permission to do that for themselves as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that, people are going to listen. They're going to go, okay, I want this calm, because even in the way that you talk, you've got this smooth, like fluid, calm presence to you. I know people are going to be like, okay, I need more of Jenna in my life. So share with us, how can people find you, stay connected, and what do you have going on? What resources do you have available for people?
Thank you for asking that, Julie. So you can find me online at jennahermans.com, or also bcrgs.com. That's Be Courageous without any vowels. If you need more courage in your organization, go to Be Courageous. And if you need more calm, Jenna Hermans, and granted, you can get it through Be Courageous as well. I have a newsletter that comes out twice a month that just brings a little bit of calm into your inbox. And I think one thing that's really important to note, Julie, is that calm is not just about, let's be slow and quiet and zen. It's about being in flow. It's about having the right energy that supports you being able to tackle whatever's in front of you. So to have more of this, right, is not, and it's not a personality trait. It's not like, well, I'm a calm person and you're not, or I am not and you are. It really is about finding your own flow where you can go and tackle everything, right? And reach the goals that you want to reach, and be able to do it from a place of groundedness and energy and flow from inside. So courage, Calm, my book, Chaos to Calm, 5 Ways Busy Parents Can Break Free from Overwhelm, can be found at anywhere books are sold. Please support local. Go to your local bookstore. If they don't already have it in stock, they can get it for you. And you can also get it delivered right to your door from Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble. And I have free resources through jennahermans.com, downloadables to help you to get to Calm. I have my meal planning sheet that I personally use that's there available for everyone, in addition to other downloadables and like habit trackers and excerpts from the book as well. So if you want to get a little taster, those are there.
Amazing. So we'll make sure to in the show notes that we'll do a link to Jenna's website and all those places that you can check that out. So I'm like already like noting like, okay, meal plan. I'm going to download that. So thank you so much for coming on and for sharing this really, truly important message that I wish more people talked about. And I'm so glad that you're out there in the world talking about it. Is how can we go from chaos to calm? And I just really do see that ripple effect into all of our lives, and especially as parents, how you can then teach your children that and the other people around you. So Jenna, thank you so very much. For all of you tuning in, please remember to share this out, tag both Jenna and myself. Let us know what stood out for you. What of the things that she shared are you going to start implementing? And, you know, what are the things that you can start doing in your own life and what really stood out for you? So thank you all so much. And until next time, for this time, remember that you can go from chaos to calm.